Hey Chad. All right, so as promised, here's the latest on the design, the Scotch yoke design. There's been quite a few little changes and additions and just some tweaks and tunes here and there. I printed off one just to check it out, and then tweaked that one a little bit more, and made some design changes to sort of save on some material and try and add a couple of features to make the function of it run a little bit smoother. So here's where we stand so far. So as far as the body here, don't get too wrapped up on it. The overall size and shape is really the only important thing. So I think the diameter on this is like 96 millimeters across. So it's on par with the other one, the other model that we looked at. And then this sort of button sleeve and the button itself. Again, we can probably make that a bit more sleek. The only thing I think we're kind of stuck with is this distance here, this button throw distance, because that amount of travel is required to push the arms and get this thing to turn the proper amount to spin the wheel or spin the paddle and get things moving. But so let's break this down a little bit and just kind of show you piece by piece. So let me hide up these bodies here a little bit and just show you. So the lid itself, again, the through hole for the paddle. These are just the two standoffs that'll hold the two push arms for the button and the bow tie mechanism. You have the sleeve here along the back. That's the button sleeve, and it sort of hides everything. The sleeve, the button, when it's fully extended, kind of, you see gaps, and so you'd be able to see inside. So the sleeve just sort of hides everything from looking inside. This is a little standoff that holds that extension spring that I was telling you about, and I'll show you a picture of that spring here in a second, what it looks like. This is the push arms and the bow tie. And the bow tie, the shape of the bow tie is just sort of what turns the standoff on the wheel and turns the paddle. And then I've got the button basically as a separate object, so that I can print, this and this separate, and then put it all together, assemble it after the fact. And then this is the other little standoff for the spring. So if I bring back in, let's bring this in, this, that, joints, okay. And so when it's at its closed position, so this would be its fully closed position here, the button fully extended, this would be its normal position at rest. The spring, one end would tie onto this post, the other end would tie onto this post. In fact, let me just show you that real fast here. Extension spring. So it's this type of spring. Again, just an eye on either end, and then it extends, but its normal resting position is closed. And so that would pull the button back automatically every time, and it's got a nice smooth opening. I tried going the other route with a compression spring, and actually having a compression spring on this end. But any of the ones that were long enough were too flimsy. So as you push, the spring basically buckled, which means then I would have to add like some sort of a tube or something to hold the spring, and then a rail, and there was a whole bunch of parts extra to it that ultimately I thought were just failure points. So I left that. So I ditched that idea. Or to get a spring that didn't buckle meant that the compression resistance was something like 17 pounds, and so you'd almost need two hands to move the spring with enough distance to actually turn the wheel. So I ditched that other one and just went with the extension spring. It actually ended up working out better. It's a lot smoother of an operation and doesn't put a whole bunch of stress on the joints. And so again, a couple little tweaks I did, like I moved some things around, added this standoff, added that standoff. I'll probably need to beef these up a little bit because of the print. They snapped off on the print. just because they're too small. I mean, I made them like 2 millimeters, and you know, the plastic on the print just didn't like it, and they were a little bit too small for the eye hole on the spring anyway. So beefing that up should be no problem. And I'd probably actually, you know, hook them rather than just a straight post, but put a hook on it to alleviate any sort of spring sort of popping out or getting out of place. But you know, leaving it so it's under constant tension to some degree. But other than that, I think it's coming along. I figured probably best now to sort of get you a video on this and at least show you how the button works and the sleeve, because we're a bit limited there. I mean, I'm sure, like I said, we can streamline this a little bit more to clean it up, but that amount of throw is kind of going to be required to move this thing. To move the paddle in a 360 motion, or even just get two paddles and move it 180. There are some other things that we can do. There are some other alternatives, or it's not really alternatives. It's a different way of gearing the Scotch yoke and how you move or place some of the levers and the mechanisms, where you can do a shorter wheel and maybe a shorter throw, but move it a greater distance. A few more moving parts involved, and I'd have to do a little bit more research. So not out of the realm of possibility. Just this is the simplest, most straightforward that I can find so far. So look at this one. Let me know what you think. And if you're good, you want me to keep refining this one, then I'll make a couple of extra tweaks and, you know, do a print and get it out to you so you can take a look at it and really play around with it. But you know, again, the end look and feel will be like that first sort of overall design that we talked about with, you know, the lofted lid, where there's a bigger lid base and then a smaller lid top and the flap opening, stuff like that. That overall design would still be there. This would just be the through hole for the spout. That would be the same size as the other one, and you'd still be able to, you know, pull the bottom off of off the canister with the powder in it and dump it in there. So all that would still be the same. I figured just spending more time on this mechanism, since that's kind of the, you know, one of the most important pieces of this, where if we can't get that to work, then there's kind of no point in going forward with the rest of it. But so this one's looking pretty good. The other one I was working on was this, and I didn't spend as much time. I kind of came across this one right after the Scotch yoke, and I did print one. I printed that one actually, but let me. Sorry, give me a second here. It's going to be hard to hold this thing up. But so anyway, it's this, and so as you're turning, let me get my fingers out of the way. As you're turning, it always turns in one direction. Is that moving? Oops, I'm messing with the wheel. But anyway, as the slider goes back and forth, it's always actually turning the paddle in one direction. And my tolerances are a bit off on this print, so don't get too wrapped up in that. But it'll move back and forth. In fact, let me just go ahead and show you on here. As the paddle is moving, it grabs this bottom set of teeth, and as it reaches the backside, oh, my computer's chugging along here. But as it reaches the end of it, it'll come up and grab the top and then move it back in the other direction. All the while, the paddle's still moving in the same direction. So anyway, there's obviously a little bit of room for improvement on this one to tweak and tune, but I think, you know, either way we go, I think this one is still a bit more robust, and probably, I would think, from a reliability perspective, a little bit better. I think this, although, you know, fewer moving parts, doesn't bias anything from an aesthetics perspective, because we'd still have to have a sleeve out here with a button that accounts for this amount of throw in the gear. So, and then again, you know, we'd have to incorporate, you know, an extension spring, which isn't a big deal. It's easy stuff. But I think like I said, from a reliability and durability perspective, I think this design is pretty good. So anyway, take a look. Let me know what you think. If you want me to continue to refine this, like I said, I'll do a couple tweaks and get a print and mail it off to you. You can take a look at it from there, and, you know, get it in your hands too, and take a look at it. And anyway, let me know. I'll talk to you soon.